Hi, welcome to the Light of Deception Ministry. Today I'm going to be filming our new series. This one is going to hit really close to home, so it's going to be tough to listen to, but it needs to be said. It is for anybody out there that is having eyes to see and ears to hear and kind of wondering what's going on in the world with children, with video games, with cartoons, with movies, with books, and Eastern meditation practices that are being taught to our children as young as preschool. And in the cartoons that they're seeing before they're in preschool. So as we were growing up, when I was young, I remember that the movies that were out and the cartoons that were out back in the day were pretty scary. Right? But some of them were more innocent, like Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie. And then as I got a little older and got into the teenagers, and I'm talking young teens, there was that Blair Warner movie, which was dealing with demonic entities, and Poltergeist, and Freddy Krueger, which was a murderer and a child molester. And it just went on and on, Friday the 13th, and Sissy Spacek, and movies that came that she was a part of. And just thinking about the kind of nightmares and the part of me that it opened up when I got to set my eyes on such incredible evil that started off pretty innocent and then led into a world of nightmares and images that you can't get rid of in your head because you wanted to be cool and you wanted to fit in and you wanted to watch the movies that everybody else was watching. Now I watch my children grow up and they were more into Bible and fairies and more outward spells and witchcraft, which was a little bit more acceptable. So they got into the Harry Potter series, and we tried to help them stay away from such things, so they really didn't read much of those things. And then it went on to be the Hunger Games and all the things that were more popular in the young adult age. And now I'm looking at a teacher. I'm sitting in the playgrounds and watching, and I'm governing over kids and protecting them, and I'm seeing them casting spells as young as 4 years old. So they're in 5 years old and they're throwing crystals and gems and casting spells, and kids are laying on the floor and they're doing zombie, come alive, and they're being dead people in coffins, and they're demon dogs, and they're all into these different things they're watching on TV. So children, what they do is they act out what they see in their imagination. Somebody says, don't you know the difference between reality and imagination? Well, imagination evil and imagination witchcraft is not real. So it's just the imagination. Well, the imagination will lead you in all kinds of divination practices, right? And will lead you into ultimately witchcraft and being a warlock or a white witch, or wanting superpowers, or wanting to be able to do things that the witches do and cast spells and these kind of things. So your imagination truly leads you astray. And how does the enemy work? Do you think he works with children in the reality of evil or in the mystical world of evil? Luring them into wanting to be like these characters. These are role models to them. Girls that have superpowers and crystals, and they have magics, and they're sorcerers, and they're witches, and they're fairies, and they're all these different things, right? In the guise of maybe saving something, or the witches do silly things, or they are, you know, cute little witches that have glittery clothes on and they want to dress like them. They want to be them for Halloween. Halloween in itself has its own wicked sources in paganism and witchcraft and sorcery as well. So you're seeing everything that they're seeing on TV and in these movies and in these games and the books that they're reading, and these meditation practices that lead you into all kinds of New Age practices and sorceries, and tapping into Hinduism and meditation practices, going into, you know, Buddhism and levitation practices. And it's all about these extra powers and arriving at yourself, a superpower, right? Instead of dying to self. So this series is going to contain a big 5 parts. I'm going to do a broad overview. I will keep the parts together for those who like to see it in its entirety. It'll be under an hour. And if you're one that really likes to see parts of things at different times, there'll be probably 5 different parts, 10 to 15 minutes in length. So here we go. I'm going to start off with giving you the title of what I'm going to be teaching, and it is this. Does the enemy use cartoons, movies, games, meditation practices, and books to win the minds and hearts of our children? That is going to be what we're going to cover. So first I'm going to be talking a little bit about an overview, but cartoons are going to be the first thing I'm going to be addressing. So this first little phrase that I'm going to read here is by a little cute company called Big Happy House. And this is what they say. Best witch movies for kids and families. Not too scary. If there's one thing that excites all kids, it's magic. Boys, girls, old, young, magic is something that almost all children love. There's something about the ability to talk to animals, fly, change the weather, and even make a zit disappear that is just mesmerizing. And there's no one who does magic quite like witches. That's why witch movies are so popular. Some kids prefer their witches sweet and sassy. Others like to see witches who are scary and make them shiver. Still others like witches who are a little kooky and silly. In this list, we gathered up all the best witches, the scary ones, the sassy ones, and the silly ones alike, to bring you all the very best witch movies for kids. Okay, and this has a little cute, and I'll show it to you, I'll put it here, a little sassy like dinosaurs that look so innocent and sweet. So we're going to show you what sweetness and how the enemy can guise itself in glittery, sparkly, fancy dresses and cutesy little characters and still be teaching spells, witchcraft, and sorcery. Now, the first one I want to talk about is a little cartoon called Shimmer and Shine cartoon. So listen to this. And we're going to be talking a lot about gems and crystals and what that has to do with tying into witchcraft. I mean, real witchcraft and sorcery. Okay, genie gems. These Shimmer and Shine are their genies. Okay, this episode introduced genie gems, which are magical gems that genies and sorcerers, there's a sorceress in this one, like Zeta, can be used to perform various types of magic. Each gem has its own power. In order to use a gem, it must be placed in the scepter and may require certain magic words and other requirements to use its power. Princess Samira rewards the twins with a green burst gem which can bloom magic plants. It is stolen by Zeta after she uses a potion that ends up pulling Leah and Zach into Sahara Falls with the twins and the gem. However, Leah tricks Zeta and manages to recover the gem. Okay, this is another part from the same series. After showing her the KALLIOPE crystal, Eula shows them her workshop where she makes genie gems. She demonstrates how the KALLIOPE crystal is turned into a genie gem by using one over the KALLIOPE crystal, breaking it apart to create a blank gem, and then imbue it with the power of music to create music gems. She then offers to let the girls create their own gems using the crystal they found. Leah wants to create a flight gem, while Shine wants to create a speedy gem. And Shimmer wants to create a gem that makes things bright and shiny. Eula, however, explains that they can only add on magic powers to the gem. Though the girls think they are in agreement, they end up imbuing different powers into the gem, which results in an unstable chaos gem. which randomly produces the magic it is imbued with, causing havoc. Okay, that's just part of that. Okay, there is another series, or books, and it's cartoons, and it's done by Steven Universe. So who is Steven Universe? Okay, believe in Steven. Steven Universe is a half human, half gem hero who's learning to save the world with the magical powers that come from his belly button. Steven may not be as powerful as the crystal gems or as smart, but that doesn't stop him from joining Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl on the magical adventure, where Steven always finds a surprising way to save the day. So there you go. Okay, so what is the problem with crystals, and why am I talking about magical powers and crystals? And how does that relate to reality? How do you train up a kid, right? How does Satan work? How does he lure kids in? So he wants everybody, right? He wants everybody to follow him. How do you take an impressionable child, put him in a situation where everything dark is now magnified and beautified and sparkly and shiny and powerful, and fairies and beauty and superpowers for guys and all this fighting, and not ever really, the good guy never really gets damaged, and he comes back to life, and he's always powerful, more powerful, right? There's one that's called the Red Gem. It is also, I watched a little bit of with the Red Gem, and it teaches children, and I'm going to put it here so you can see it, how to cast spells and what they need to do with their body and how they move their body. And then he casts the spells, and all the kids are casting the spell at him, and then there's a creature that appears, and then it comes into him, and he said, I feel the power. So think about that. That's Red Gem, dealing with a red crystal gem. Here we go. Okay, we're going to be talking about movies in this one, so we're going to head on to part 2. Now, I've talked about Star Wars before, but this is amazing, so you're going to hear about this. I'll show you some series of gaming that's out there for Star Wars. They're in books, they're all over the place, cartoons, they're movies, they're everything. So, and they're using mystical meditation practices too. The Star Wars film series started a trend 20 years ago. George Lucas promoted witchcraft by introducing the force of a dark and light side, black and white magic. The Jedi Knights were the followers of the old religion, another name for Wicca or witchcraft. The laser sword was not a weapon but a divination device which only those initiated into the power could use. Luke Skywalker couldn't make it work until he learned to go into an alternative state and let the Force take over. Obi-Wan Kenobi became Luke's spirit guide, communicating with him from the other side. Darth Vader, who seemed the embodiment of evil, turned out to have Thor's inner perfection and join Obi-Wan on the other side of death, thus revealing the oneness of all. Yoda is the yogi who teaches Luke the power of positive thinking.
Star Wars has been known to occasionally dabble in magic, as early back as the Ewok cartoons or the Ewok Battle for Endor made-for-TV movie. The Dathomirian Night Sisters of Star Wars Legends had some magic in their culture, and perhaps most prominently, their canon counterparts in the Clone Wars definitely used magic, spelled with a K in universe. So what is magic in Star Wars? Is it an aspect of the Force, or is it a completely separate thing? I believe the intent is for anything mystical or supernatural in Star Wars to be related to the Force. I think the new canon especially has done a really great job of showing us the various ways different cultures interpret and relate to the Force. They have their own beliefs, but it's clear that they are related to the Force as a whole. I think most people that just watch the movies tend to think that the Jedi, the Sith, the light and the dark are all there is to know about the Force, but I loved Luke's line in The Last Jedi about the light being its own thing, independent of the Jedi. Most of the new interpretations of the Force we've seen have been light side adjacent, I think, but the magic of the Night Sisters definitely seems to be their own version of the dark side. Nothing about it screams natural or light side to me, however that doesn't mean we've seen all there is to see. A Night Sister character in the mobile game Star Wars Uprising described her magic as a living thing that arises from blood and trees and mist, flowing through her veins that can be reshaped when channeled. That sounds incredibly similar to Obi-Wan's description of the Force to Luke, so that just really hammers home the idea that magic is just the Force by another name. And I have to imagine that even if we've seen mostly dark side uses of Night Sister magic, there are likely light side uses or spells as well. Of course, we've also seen a couple uses of straight-up Sith magic in both the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. Palpatine and Dooku used a technique to attack Yoda while he was on the Sith homeworld that required the use of Dooku's blood and Force lightning. The whole thing was done in a kind of cauldron, and it created illusions. It's very similar to what we would normally call witchcraft. The same cauldron and blue flame could be seen in the World Between Worlds episode of Star Wars Rebels, where again I believe Sidious was creating illusions to trick Ezra Bridger, but he was also able to use the blue flame as an attack. I think we'll continue to learn more about the Force and its many interpretations, and I would like to see more from the quote-unquote magic side of things. But I think when it comes down to it in the Star Wars universe, it's all the Force. Anything mystical, otherworldly, or supernatural probably boils down to some sort of aspect of the Force at the end of the day.
Star Wars was followed by other films openly promoting the occult. There was Close Encounter of the Third Kind, Poltergeist, Ghost, and a host of others. Through films and videos, today's youth are being seduced into the unholy trinity of sexual immorality, rebellion, and the occult. Now we're going to close with the end portions of this, but I definitely want to go back a little bit to the top of what Dave was talking about. And just in case you missed part 1 and part 2, I'm going to just do a quick overview because I think this is important. Many of the games, toys, videos, and films most popular among children and youth involve the occult. Games such as Dungeons and Dragons. There is even a Christian counterpart called Dragon Raid.
The night is dark and foreboding. Heavy clouds revealed by an occasional blinding flash of lightning hang in the sky. Mysterious noises come from the tangled underbrush in the forest around you. A sudden dread fills your heart. What makes you so afraid? Once again, a brilliant flash of lightning illumines the path in front of you, and what you see makes your heart leap into your mouth. Standing not 20 feet away are 3 goblins with their daggers drawn. They see you at the same instant. What do you do? Welcome to Dragon Raid. You are embarking on a fantasy adventure learning simulation.
Involve the players in non-stop occultism. Here's a 10-part video game segment showing dark magic. I only use 4 of the 10 to explain.
Magic has become a huge and important element in video games. Number 7 is Dragon's Dogma. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about with Dragon's Dogma. The spells in Dragon's Dogma are basically natural disasters that you just call on. They're like the animations in Bayonetta, except you control them. You just set them loose on people. The way you target them and cast them is very cool, but it's really the end result. You want to literally just start a tornado that rips an enemy to shreds? Yeah, go ahead and do it. It looks as epic epic, as it should too. The spells are so ridiculous and powerful, it felt awesome controlling that kind of ridiculous force within a world, and it also looked cool as hell. Number 6 is the game Sacrifice. Like the entirety of the game, it's an RTS based fully around magic, and it does have some action elements, but the type of game it is really isn't why I'm talking about it. Certainly you know from the fact that it's an RTS that there's a lot of depth, but as you engage in an all-out magic war, the way you defeat your opponent was by sacrificing one of your friendly units on their altar, thusly desecrating it. Dishonored 2 is just masterful game design, and its spell system is just a joy to experiment within. To call the stuff that happens in this game magic it's an understatement. And finally, number 1, those concepts are taken to another level in Divinity Original Sin. Now, I'm not going to make any assertions as to which game is more fun or better or anything like that, but a lot of those same spell casting concepts and environmental interaction that we saw in Dishonored, particularly in Dishonored 2, is also on display in Divinity Original Sin, except they go way further with the environmental interaction. And obviously it's not the exact same kind of game, there's a lot of different mechanics to it, particularly the perspective you experience everything in the game from, and the fact that one is a real-time first-person experience and the other is a turn-based RPG. Still, oddly enough, they really intersect in the ideas. Frankly, I think if you bring up one, you need to bring up the other, because it's the same kind of thing, presented and executed in a totally different way.
These fantasy role-playing games are extremely dangerous because of the use of the imagination, which is the quickest way into the occult. Parents need to study these games for themselves. Children's cartoons and TV and video provide both enticements and initiations into the occult. Parents need to be aware of the purpose and the meaning behind them. Americans' children have become obsessed with the occult through the media.
Arrives at the academy. The celebrations are cut short. As the witch begins to recruiting fairies into the rivaling school of witchcraft, it becomes clear she has dark intentions. And soon, Bristol's friend Lucy becomes embroiled in the ominous plot against mankind.
Hi, welcome to the Light of Deception. Today I'm going to continue in the series titled, Does the Enemy Use Cartoons, Movies, Games, Meditation Practices, and Books to Win the Minds and Hearts of Our Children? Absolutely uses every means, so it's going to be flashy and sparkly and powerful and mystical, and and people are saying, your imagination is fine, let the kids have their imagination. Well, when they're looking at TVs and movies and reading books and games and all these meditation and enchantment practices and under witchcraft and sorcery, it's not a game, and it's not. The imagination will lead you astray. And then the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? So if you don't think children can be drawn away by their imagination, then I'm sadly to say that's what they act out in the playgrounds. Casting spells, throwing crystals, fighting, powerful, falling on the ground, getting back up, playing dead, in coffins, demon dogs. There are all these things on the playground. So, and it's heartbreaking because you're thinking to yourself, it's not innocent play anymore. It is sorcery they're being taught and witchcraft in the pagan occult divination practices throughout the secular and Christian schools alike across the gamut. So today I said we were going to be looking at Disney cartoons using demons to teach children how to do witchcraft. Disney Channel, The Owl House, which premiered Friday, is about a teenager who finds herself stuck in the demonic realm and battles the force of evil alongside a rebellious witch and a pint-sized warrior. According to the synopsis released by Disney, Liz, a self-assured teenage human girl, accidentally stumbles upon a portal to a magical new world where she befriends a rebellious witch, Ida, an adorably tiny warrior, King. Despite not having magical abilities, Luz pursues her dream of becoming a witch by serving as Ida's apprentice at the Owl House, and ultimately finds a new family in an unlikely setting. This show concept is alarming for several reasons, but key among these is that it portrays the very real supernatural force of evil as good, a direct violation of Isaiah 5:20. So we're going to look at Isaiah 5:20 and see what it says here. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. That is a warning. We are not to do that.
Cast down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Corinthians 10:5.
Yoga, there's no arguing it. Children in public schools are learning yoga, according to yoga instructor Mark Blanchard of Progressive Power Yoga. He taught children at Flex Elementary School in California. On a blog, he writes, I will be introducing yoga to all the kids at the school. Donate a full yoga program. Blanchard has been featured in many magazines such as Family Centered and 17 and has trained many actors and actresses. Blanchard plans to bring progressive power yoga to many places as he can around the state as well as the globe. Part of Blanchard's plan includes working a mini yogis yoga for kids on a mini yogis website. They list not only Blanchard's company, but many other organizations as well, many of which are schools like Happy Land Preschool in Culver, California, and St. Monica's Elementary School in Santa Monica, both in California. Yoga for kids is on the rise, and if your child attends public school, you may want to check to see if teachers there are teaching him or her yoga. A program called Yoga Ed provides yoga classes under the heading of health and wellness for schools. These programs take place in several states, including California, Colorado, New York, Washington, and Washington, D.C. In the article titled Yoga Causes Controversy in Public Schools, veteran apologist Dave Hunt is referenced and quoted. Dave Hunt, who has traveled to India to study yoga roots and interview gurus, called the practice a vital part of the largest missionary program in the world for Hinduism. Author of Yoga and the Body of Christ, What Position Should Christians Hold, said that, like other religions, the practice has no place in public schools. It's pretty simple. Yoga is a religious practice in Hinduism. It's the way to reach enlightenment. To bring it to the West and bill it as a scientific practice of fitness is dishonest, said Hunt. So, believe me yoga's in the Christian schools too. I've seen it. Parents whose children are in Christian schools may need to be concerned too. More and more churches and Christian organizations are opening their doors to the practice of yoga. And biggest Christian publisher, Thomas Nelson, published a book titled Yoga for Christians in 2006. It's just a matter of time before kids in Christian schools will be learning yoga and the art of meditation. It's already happening. It's been happening for a while. It is tragic to know that countless public school children are being taught practices that are rooted in Eastern mysticism and will learn how to say Namaste. The God in me greets the God in you before they learn they can have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ without going into alternative states of consciousness through meditation, and it is equally tragic that many Christians will not even be able to help them because they are learning similar practices through their own spiritual formation, i.e. contemplative prayer, spirituality programs in their churches. So be careful. Guard your children, safeguard your children. I have seen it in the public school setting. I have seen it in the Christian school setting. I have seen it in the teen setting, definitely in classrooms where teachers are teaching the 10 darkest movies. They get to see each one of the clips from the 10 darkest movies out there, and they write a report about it. I am so blown away by all of that, and I had not even introduced my own children to it, that they were introduced to it in a high school in 10th grade, to the 10 darkest movies that are out there, and nightmares and all the things that come along with children, even if they're saying it's not real, they're scared to death. I had 2 children that are twins watch Chucky during Halloween, that little doll that kills people. And one of them kept saying, oh, it's not real. And the other one, you couldn't even say Chuck E. Cheese. She was terrified, leading to nightmares. It is a childhood trauma. Parents don't know that because they've been introduced to fright and scary things as being cool and being something that is not real, and it's being something that is just darkness and evil in the imagination, and witch and rituals and cutesy kind of things, and they're thinking there's nothing wrong with it, but there's everything wrong with it. Just like the Bible said, we need to be separate, right? And to refrain from every form of evil. And I'm going to leave you with that thought. Also, I want to make sure that you come back and start to see our new ministry called Straight Talk, Rightly Dividing the Truth, where I have guests on the show on Straight Talk, where we're using the plumb line, which is the Word of God, to divide the truth accurately. And we'll be having topical discussions. We already have 2 that are up. One of them is dealing with sin and repentance, and the other one, the very first one, was dealing with the state of the modern church, talking about all kinds of the world inside the church, bringing in the world to bring in the world. Now, we're hoping to have another person on the program real soon that's going to be talking about faith in the trials of life. And he has a lot of things that he had to go through in life and still strengthen his faith to stand unwavering on the Word of God. So bring everything back to the plumb line where all truth is found. Thank you. If you find this channel something you like to listen to and you'd like to hear more of what we have to offer, please down below hit subscribe, like, and share everything that we have here. That way we can reach more people to teach them about what's going on in the world as related to what's coming into the church. Until next time, thank you.